What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Your First Real Estate Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Tony J. Robinson, and as always, I'm excited to bring you guys another really inspiring story that I'm hoping will help you get started in your real estate investing career. But before we dive into that, if you're on Instagram, give me a follow. It's at Tony J. Robinson. Do my best to start sharing a lot more content through that platform as well. So if you're looking for more ways to connect, get at me there. If you're looking to understand how I got my first deal done, right? I bought it out of state. Zero money down. Had a really good deal, really good experience. If you're interested in hearing that story, head over to yourfirstrealestateinvestment.com/first deal, and you can get the whole breakdown on how I did that deal and how I made it work. So with that out the way, I'm super excited to get into today's episode. So in today's episode, we've got a really exciting story of someone who's taken kind of this little known real estate program and has used it to build a nice portfolio for himself. Today, we've got Andre Haynes on the podcast. Andre, thanks for joining us today, brother.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me on this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Excited to dive into your story. But before we do, Dre, just tell us a little bit about yourself, man. When you're not working in real estate, what are you doing? How are you spending your time?
Man, typically Monday through Friday, I'm trading stock options, working out, dealing with my dogs. I have a breeding business where I breed bullies. Just entrepreneurial stuff. I was able to leave the workforce probably 2.5 years ago and really focus on my own companies. And real estate freed me up to do that.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, brother. I mean, I think that's the goal of so many people listening to this podcast is, finding a way to escape that 9 to 5, man. So excited to dive into your story. But you before we dive into that specifically, I just want to talk about why you chose real estate, right? It sounds like you have some other ventures that you've been successful in. What made you also explore real estate as a path for you?
Real estate has always been my top choice of what I wanted to do with my life. Just us as African Americans, we typically don't know or have access to the information. So I was rapping and just doing different things that we do, trying to get into sports and entertainment, which is typically a lot of times all we know when we come from the hood, low income places, to get money. So I was rapping, and I think about 27, 28 years old, I had been rapping for about 12 years, like seriously, like doing shows, trying to get deals, all these different things. I had come to the realization, like, yeah, it's not working. Like, you know what I mean? You got to do something different. And when I did that, I never gave up on my goal of being wealthy. I just had to move forward and transition into something different. So once I started rapping, I got back in school and I just started to look up and just study what are people out here doing to get wealthy outside of sports or entertainment. And real estate and the stock market were always the first two things that I would always come across and read about.
Yeah, I love what you said. I never gave up on my goal to be wealthy. You just kind of chose another path.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think what you said is so true, right? Especially in the Black community and other communities of color, there's such a lack of I think just financial information, right? And there's no one really paving the way to say, hey, there's other ways to make this whole thing happen. So what do you think kind of opened your eyes to that, Dre, right? Because like, did you know someone who was successfully investing in real estate? Like, did you have a mentor that you're going after?
Yes, I did. So after I stopped rapping, the lady who was managing me, who's like a big sister and a mentor of mine, she's also a real estate broker.
Okay.
And I kind of, went to her and was like, hey, I don't think, I want to really move forward with this, rapping thing anymore. I don't think I really want to put any money or time behind it any longer. And I need to do something else. So, she was like, okay, just, you can come and be an assistant for me for a little while and we'll see how that pans out. So I assisted her brokerage offers for a little bit. And she invested a lot of time, a lot of money, into me. Like, she sent me to school to be a real estate agent, like all of these different things. Cause she's like, yeah, you're not just going to be sitting around the office collecting a check, being an assistant. That's too easy of a job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, get out here and be able to show some of these properties and do some things and take some of the heat off of me, because I can't do everything because I'm really spread thin. And like I said, she put a lot of time and money into me, and like just like really believed in me, and always encouraged me to try and do different things outside of rap, because I'm really, really smart. And she always tell me, like, dude, the words that you use in your music and the way that you write, like, you're really, really talented when it comes to, like, the way that you think and your wordplay. So, like, just figure out a way to apply that, energy and intelligence to something else. And that was the main source that kind of like pushed me in the direction of real estate, seeing her and having her encourage me. And after a while, she moved to Vegas, and I kind of like had to like start over. So I had to get a job, get back to, you know what I mean, get back in school and start figuring stuff out. And I started reading just whatever I could about finance, real estate, just, you know what I mean, personal self-improvement. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad was probably the book that really like, you know, ding, 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 clicked everything together for me. And at the time I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I had been working probably for a few years at this point. So I had, you know what I mean, some money established, savings, just all of these different things. So I called my, you know what I mean, my big sister, my mentor, like, hey, yo, got about 10 grand saved up. I'm ready to buy a house. She was like, boy, please, don't buy no damn house. Like, you young, you know what I mean? You got,
Right.
you know what I mean, everything going for yourself. This is the time to put yourself ahead financially. You can get you an investment property, because it's not like you have a big family that you have to take care of and put in that house. You know what I mean? It's just you right now. So she told me about the NACA program. She was like, hey, go do this, and this, and reach back out to me if you have any questions. And I did it, man, which is what most people don't do. They don't follow through. You know what I mean?
Right.
I followed through. I listened to her instructions. I went, and it took me about maybe 4 or 5 months to go through the NACA program. But it was me, though. Like, it was me, like, not my shit together. Like, you know, I had certain stuff that I was refusing to pay for, even though I had the money to pay for, like, you know, old T-Mobile bills and, you know, little stuff like that we have on our names, and we just like, forget it. I'm not going to worry about it. But it affects our credit. It affects our credit score. It affects our buying power, little things that we don't know. So when I went and sat with a mortgage counselor at NACA, he broke everything down and explained to me like, hey, listen, I like you. You're smart. You have the right intentions, but this is what you need to do to complete this program. And when you complete this program, it's going to set you up to, you know, do whatever it is that you're really trying to do out here. Because once you eliminate the biggest bill that's hanging over your head, which is typically your rent or your mortgage, that's,
Opens
man,
up so many doors for
that's
you, right?
ample amounts of dollars that you have free every month,
back in your pocket.
which adds up to 10, 12, 15 grand in a year. You
Right.
know what I mean?
And once you have that back in your pocket, you can do so much right
Yeah,
now. Now,
much.
Dre, I want to get into NACA, right? Because you know that's kind of the foundation that you use to build your portfolio. But before we do, let's just kind of set the table for the listeners here. So, the property that you purchased, what market was that property in?
It was in a really nice suburb just outside of the city. Beautiful amenities. Like I said, you have trains, access to the city, probably in 10 or 15 minutes you can get downtown. We have Walmart in the area, churches, restaurants, you have malls, and you have good schools. So it's a brick 4-unit, 2-bedroom, 1 bath in each unit. The property wasn't all the way fixed up, which worked out great for me because I got a great sales price on it. And it also left me room to build up sweat equity in it. And it was also fully occupied. So when I closed with a fully occupied building, and I closed at the end of the month. So I walked right into money the very next day.
Right, which is awesome. Now, and you said a suburb of the city, but you're in Chicago, right? So you
Yeah.
purchased right outside Chicago. What did you buy that property for, Dre?
I think I paid 360 grand for it. And it appraised out for 385. So I had equity in it upon purchase.
That's awesome. Now you mentioned a little bit of rehab that you might have put into it. Do you remember what you spent to get it fixed up?
Yeah, man, I spent a little, like barely anything. So all the units were filled when I bought it, and only one tenant has moved out of the place since I bought it, and that's the lady upstairs. And well, 2 tenants because I moved out too.
Okay.
So 2 tenants. So I've inherited tenants that have been there the entire time. I just got to fix up an apartment a couple of months ago because one person moved out, and my apartment that I lived in was already done. So that apartment, to fix that up, maybe cost me about $5 grand. Then I replaced all of the windows and doors. When I first got the building, that was probably my first big project, and I think that cost me about $12,000. So in about 5 years, I think I've put about 20 grand in it. But the equity since I've gotten the place has gone up about 100 grand. So
So it's worked out well for you. And now,
yeah.
now in terms of cash flow, Dre, what's like your monthly cash flow look like on this property?
Right now I'm probably cash flowing after all of the bills, maintenance, everything. I'm probably cash flowing about 1,200 monthly.
Yeah, that's awesome,
And,
man. That's
and it could
awesome.
be more because I have my rent set under the market because I like to
Right,
just like tenants happy and not just really be like a greedy guy. And
right.
that's your tenants, you know what I mean? Like you don't have
Mhm.
to like be the greediest and get the most, like you know what I mean?
Right.
And I also keep my turnaround extremely low because if somebody moves out, I have a line of people that are ready to move in because the rents are really low and also the apartment is taken care of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's dive into this a bit deeper now. You mentioned NACA. So before we start talking about the deal and all the specifics, for the listeners that aren't familiar with NACA, what is it? Just kind of lay it out for us, like what that
Um,
program.
NACA is it stands for Neighborhood Assistance Corporations of America. And NACA was a program designed to combat illegal practices of racism, such as redlining and things like that. You know, just those predatory lenders, just, you know what I mean? Just to help people out of foreclosures. And it's designed to do it in low income and moderate income communities. And NACA has been around for probably 30 years, I believe, maybe a little longer, but people just don't know about the program. It's not a big advertised program. You won't hear a lot about it, if anything, simply because banks want you to come to them. You know what I mean? So they can give
Right.
you those high rates and all of those things. But NACA actually works with two of the biggest banks in the country, which is Bank of America and also Citi. And that's who they get their lending and their mortgages from, through Citi and Bank of America. So if you do go get property through NACA, your loan will be through Bank of America or Citibank.
Now, what are the benefits, Dre, of investing with NACA as opposed to just walking up to U.S. Bank or wherever on your
Uh,
own and trying to get a deal?
that's like almost limitless. So NACA pays for pretty much everything. You don't have to worry about paying an attorney. You don't have to worry about paying your agent. You don't have to worry about closing costs. They will offer you the lowest interest rate available in the country with the option to buy your interest rate down even lower.
Mhm.
um, and they have, if you don't have your own, they have agents and everything in office set up to help you and assist you get started as well if you don't have that though that particular team to help you get started on your own.
Yeah. So you mentioned the NACA pays for everything. You mentioned agent fees, closing costs, low interest rates. What about down payment, right? When you typically go to look for a loan, you're looking at 20% if you want to go conventional, or 5, 10, 3.5, whatever it is. It's 0%.
0%, man.
Okay.
Typically the only way you have a down payment is if you put yourself in a situation where it's needed. Like, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like you go and get you something that's just outrageously priced. And it's like, okay, we can't do no down payment on this one, but we can get you probably the lowest down payment possible. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it works out, man. But for my first one, 0 down. I actually walked away from the closing table with the $5,000 check because of
All right.
yeah.
We'll have to talk about that, right? Because most people, when they buy a property, they're not getting paid for it. So we'll
Yeah.
want to circle back to that part for sure, Dre. So just to kind of recap for the listeners, right? There's the NACA program, which is the neighborhood, what was it?
Assist-
Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America, right? And it the benefits of using this are that you have pretty much really low costs of using funds, right? Whereas a
Absolutely.
typical person's going to have a lot of money out of pockets closing a property. With NACA, it's very minimal.
In addition to the fact that your credit score does not matter. Like you can have a 500 credit score and they will still give you the lowest interest rate possible, but that only factors in if all of your debt is paid. So let's say your credit score is 500 and you just recently paid off your old credit card, your T-Mobile bill, and your car note. So now you have no debt, but your credit score is low. They don't
Mhm.
care about that. As long as you can provide documents to say that your debt is clear and your debt to income ratio shows that you can afford a home, it's smooth sailing with the lowest interest rate. So at a 500 credit score, you can still get a 3.1% interest rate on a property.
Yeah.
Nobody can do that for you. Nobody, you won't even be considered. They will close the door in your face and not even politely walk you to the door. They would probably throw you right at the door like Uncle Phil used to do jazz.
Right. You know, and I guess I want to break down for the listeners why they're able to do that, right? You know, I'm familiar with NACA as well, and I had some experience with them in the past. And unlike a typical bank where, you know, you show all your documentation, your income and all that stuff, and they say, hey, here's a mortgage amount that you're approved for. NACA does it almost the inverse way, where they look at all of your income, they look at all of your expenses, and they say, hey, here's a monthly payment that you can afford. And then as long as you can find a property that meets that monthly payment, like Dre said, they don't care about your credit history. They don't care about that. They just want to know, do you have enough money at the end of every month to comfortably afford this monthly mortgage payment amount?
Yeah, and before you go through the program, pay off the debt that you owe so that we can know that you're a responsible adult. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they just want to see the responsible adult, man. That's it.
Yeah. Now, Dre, is this program limited to, you know, do you have to be a minority? Do you have to be, you know, someone that has like low income? Are there any limitations on who can apply for this?
Oh,
right.
None of, and I know we're talking about, like I say, our first time purchases, but like I said, I doubled back with NACA with my girlfriend and got $1 million property. So
so you can even use it more than once, right? I think the limitation is you can't have more than one NACA loan at a time in your name, so you might have to refinance or do something else. But you know, if you have a NACA loan, you sell, you can get another NACA loan, sell again, get another.
Absolutely. There's no end in it. There's a lot of loopholes to it if you know read the small print. Like you just got to be able to understand what's going on out here and take advantage of it, and not in a bad way, but like if there's an opportunity, why not?
Right. Now this sounds amazing, Dre, right? It sounds like everyone should be diving headfirst into using NACA, but I also know that there's a lot that comes with actually getting approved for this loan. So can you walk the listeners through just kind of what that whole process is like? How long did it take from the day you said I want a NACA loan until you actually got approved? Just kind of give us the whole experience.
So there are definitely going to be some cons. The timetable, because there are so many people that are applying for NACA loans. With them only having so many agents and people that work for NACA, they are spread extremely thin on turnaround time. So that's one of the cons. So in order to get the best out of NACA, you're going to have to call them. You're going to have to go to the office. You're going to have to knock on their door, and you're going to have to do this like without them scheduling appointments. You're just going to have to be on top of them as if, you know what I mean, they're your kids. You know what I mean? And I don't care about that. I'll do that to get the lowest interest rates, et cetera, all of these benefits. It's not like you work for NACA and they can fire you because you're calling them so much. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not the thing. Like, dude, when I tell you I used to harass my mortgage counselor like daily, like I would call him just to make sure, like, hey, just so you know that I'm not going to stop calling, this is the call. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just how you have to be with them, because they're so overwhelmed with so many people trying to take advantage of the program because it's such a great program. So of course they won't be able to call you right back if you leave them a voicemail. It may take them a week or two, but if you call back 2 hours after you just called, you may be able to get through to somebody. Don't be the passive person that just, you know, they haven't called me back yet. They probably not gonna call you back because they got 2,000 voicemails. You know what I mean? So what you have to do is understand the circumstances that you're in, understand your situation, and be like, hey, if I want this to work for me, I'm going to have to be the aggressor in this situation, and not in a bad way. Like I say, just more so in a way that's going to be beneficial for you and what it is that you're trying to do. Let them know that you're serious, and let them know that you're not going to take no for an answer, and you're not just going to let them like put you to the wayside, you know?
Right. No, that's great advice, Trey, about just kind of being persistent, right? Now, I feel like we kind of set the table. People will hopefully get a good idea of what NACA is. So let's talk about the actual deal, right? So you said that it was in a suburb of Chicago. How did you choose that specific market? Like, what made you look at that part of town and say, I like investing here? You touched on it a little bit earlier, but expand on it for us.
I grew up in the area. Okay. I grew up in the area. I had been renting in the area before buying in the area for 6 years, maybe. And I'm like, I want to live in, like, I want to own something in this neighborhood. It's beautiful. Like, I didn't want to move out of the neighborhood. So I'm like, okay, how can I stay? Gotta buy something.
Right.
So,
now,
multi-units. And like I said, I grew up in the area, so I knew that particular neighborhood just was always one of the you know, like just prominent neighborhoods in that western suburban area. You know what I mean? By being so close to the city. Like when I say so close to the city, like it's pretty much on the borderline.
Okay. Now, how did you find this deal, Dre? Was this on the MLS? Did you find it through a wholesaler? Were you just knocking on doors?
MLS, man. Like I was on Zillow, I believe, or Redfin, one of those, and I'm just like I'm obsessive when it comes to me like wanting something and like, you know what I mean, getting what I want. And me and my agent have been looking. We had been putting in contracts. They hadn't been working out. And then one night, man, I think it was maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night, I was on the MLS, and this particular property popped up, 4 units, 3 of them occupied, 1 wasn't occupied. The one that wasn't occupied was fully remodeled. I'm like, man, this looked perfect. Like, so I typically don't bother my agent after a certain time, but I'm like, yo, you know what I mean? Listen, wake up, look at this property, and we need to do a contract now. Like, so when they get in the office in the morning, they can have our offer and they can get back in contact with you, because I just don't think this is going to last, because just properties in the area don't last long. You know what I mean? And luckily he picked up his phone. He emailed me the contract. I signed everything. We did everything that we had to do. We got it over there to them that night. I think by like midnight. The next morning, my plan worked. They came into the office, responded back to the offer, accepted the offer. But it's crazy how it worked, because they accepted the offer, and it was a husband and wife that were selling it. So the wife signed the contract, but the husband didn't. So the husband didn't get off work until 5 that evening. The wife and husband agreed at 10 a.m. She signed the contract, but he couldn't sign it until after 5. So I'm thinking, you know, I got a contract on the property. It's all good. So I think I go to a Robert Kiyosaki seminar or something like that evening. So I get a call from my agent. He's like, yo, I got some bad news for you. Like, what do you mean you got bad news? He was like, so remember I told you they accepted the offer? I'm like, yeah. He was like, well, the husband wasn't home to sign the contract. So in the time while he was at work and the wife signed the contract, another offer came in. And it's all cash.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude. So he's like, yeah. So they're like, you know, we got to come back to the table and put our best offer in first thing in the morning. So the original asking price was $340.
Okay.
I had to up the price $20,000 to get the building.
Okay.
I was sick, dude. Like I was tell you, I was sick. Like I was on a high, because I'm like, oh man, I just got a contract on a property that I'm gonna get. I'm at this Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar. It's lit.
Right,
like, oh,
right.
just like, you know what I mean? And then he called me with that news. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, okay. So write up the contract, just add another $20,000 on there. Hopefully it goes through. If not, don't even worry about it.
Let me pause on that, Dre. Like, how did you know that the deal still made sense at 360,000 as opposed to 340,000? Like, you know, an extra $20,000, that's nothing to, you know, to sneeze at. Like,
I know the comps in the area. I knew the comps in the area. I knew that the properties in the area wouldn't have an issue with praising out at all. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I grew up in the area, and I had been looking at just comps and studying the area just for the longest, you know, and I'm like, this building is worth well over 360. They're just being generous with their asking price because they want to get rid of it fast. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was a couple that had bought the building, I think, in 2008, 2009. So they had made plenty of profits on it because they bought it during the recession. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, just adding up.
Yeah. What about the actual income on the property, right? Like, were you looking at the potential rents, or did that factor into, you know, what you could charge, that factor into it at all?
The rents always factored in. So the crazy part is the rents at the time were extremely low, and they almost caused me not to get the property. Mm-hmm. But I started doing overtime at work, and I had got a raise like a month before I closed. So that put me in contention, my debt to income right above where I needed to be able to afford it. And then too, I knew once I got the property, I was going to go up on the rent because they were super duper low compared to what the rent area. I'm like, okay, if I can just get it, I'll be fine. And that's another thing about NACA and just buying a multi-unit property in general. So you want to find something that's already occupied and has people living in it, because that's what really makes the property more affordable, the rents that it's already generating. So let's say the mortgage on the property is going to be $4,000 a month, right? But let's say you make $2,500 a month. Of course, you can't afford that. But let's say the property every month, it generates $4,000. So now they're going to take 75% of that $4,000, which is $3,000, and add it to your income. So now your $2,500 just turned into $5,500. And the mortgage on the property is $4,000. So that makes the property more than affordable for you at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Totally different situation than if you're going to look for a single family home or a building that has no tenants in it. So now you're solely responsible for covering this entire mortgage. They don't care, oh, I'm going to put tenants in. Like, no, can you pay the mortgage now?
Right.
So I suggest if you're going to go for a multi-unit, find you something that's turnkey, that has people living in it already, that has rent generating already, and that's going to make the property so much easier to attain and so much easier to occupy for you, because it's already income generating, and that just adds to your money that you producing from your job,
Right.
wherever you get paid from.
Now, Dre, that advice, I think it's super solid, but it kind of runs counter to what I typically preach, but I think it makes sense in this scenario, right? Like what I typically tell people is, when you find, especially when you're looking at multifamily, you want to find an opportunity where you can quickly increase the rents, right? Where you can rehab and increase. So you need some level of vacancy to be able to do that, right? But what you're saying is, in order to get this really attractive financing through NACA, you got to know how to play the game the right way. Right?
Absolutely.
And in order to play the game the right way, it means you got to find a fully occupied property, so that way that income can be calculated. And I think the lesson for everyone that's listening is there are so many different ways to get started.
Formulas, man.
So many different ways, right? And you have to be able to get creative enough to find the one that fits your specific situation. So kudos to you, Dre, for not getting super caught up on the fact that you put out offers and they got denied, and how am I going to make this? You said, hey, I'm just going to keep going until I find the right solution for my situation. So
when it comes to these deals, man, like there are going to be a million deals. You don't stop until you get what you want. If a deal doesn't feel right, if it doesn't sit well with you in your stomach and in your chest, like, because it's going to, the feeling of when it don't sit right, like, I really shouldn't be doing this. Like, you're going to know, because this is like, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. We ain't talking about no little money that you asking the bank to give you or that you're going to be getting. So when you spend this money and you get these properties, you want to feel good about it. Like, you know what I mean? You don't want to have buyer's remorse. Man, just do as much research as you can. Find the strategy that works for you and that's going to put you in the best situation. You know what I mean? And for me, that's just what's worked. And it's given me the opportunity to build up sweat equity, man. Like, so I can build up my own equity with way less money than I would have if I would have did like a 203K loan or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And also, I don't have this big, giant rehab loan hanging over my head on top of my mortgage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You found the strategy that worked for you, brother. So I want to talk about what happens after you get your offer accepted, right? So you put in at 360. They say, okay, cool, Dre, we love your offer. Let's go. Let's close. What happens from there?
So after that, you know what I mean? We you go through the process of the contract. You get inspections done, appraisals, all that stuff, make sure everything's good. You walk through the property, meet the tenants. Hey guys, I'm potentially about to be your new landlord, you know what I mean? All of that stuff. And then you get your closing date, and you sit at the table. That's when all of the lawyers and the agents, everybody's sitting there filling out paperwork, waiting on the money and everything to go through. Right. And at the end of it all, everybody got a check, and they're like, hey man, you got $5,000.
Yeah, tell us how that happens. Tell us how that happens, Dre.
Like, what? I was like, swear. So I got to keep all of the money that I saved, which was about $12,000, on top of me walking away from the closing table with $5,000 due to a tax credit. And I also got money back from the seller. So they gave me the money you know what I mean, just the closing cost money, which I didn't have closing costs. So that worked in my favor. I used that money to buy the interest rate down. And then there was a tax credit because they owed the prior year's taxes. That wasn't my responsibility. So somehow that money fell a certain type of way, and there was $5,000 just left over. And they're like, well, it's his.
Here you go.
Like, it's his. Like, it's nobody else's. Everybody else got their money. The sellers got their money. The agents got their money. Everybody got their money. Then there's $5,000 left. Oh, that goes to Andre.
Right.
So that's worked out.
You know, man, I think you're like episode 59 or 60, Dre. And out of all these episodes, I don't think I've met another person that's gotten paid for buying a rental property.
I try to tell people how unique my situation is and how blessed I was to come out of my situation the way that I did. Everybody says I've never heard of that in my life. And it's just like, man, it was a blessing because it set me up so well financially. So after I closed, like I said, I walked away with $5,000. I keep all the money that I had, and the very next day I started getting rent checks. Mm-hmm. Man, that's a hell of a way to start your real estate career, dude.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And like I said, my interest rate, I bought it down to 2.5%. Like that's
almost free money, right?
That's money pretty much, man. So at this point, I have the lowest interest rate. I have equity in my property. And I have so much room to go up on the rents, so much. So it's like just equity, just built income and equity, bro. Moving forward, just income and equity.
I love it, Dre. Now let's talk about what happens after you actually close. Right now, you've got this Four-Plex, and you've got 3 tenants. Have you ever managed a property before that, Dre, or was this
ever?
So what do you do? Just walk us through that experience of becoming a property manager and kind of how that was for you.
Before you even close, they have you take a course through NACA. It's a landlord course to make sure that you're qualified and you understand. And also, man, when I was in school, when I was in college, I studied psychology. So I just, just people have different personalities. You got to understand that. And I was really cordial with everybody. I was blessed enough to have older, more established tenants. One of my tenants, she's probably 75 years old, retired Chicago public school teacher. So she gets her retirement check. So her money's guaranteed every month. Then I have a couple on the second floor upstairs. I think one of them gets disability and the other one works. So, you know what I mean? They do good. And the other one, she's a teacher. So everybody has careers. They are established. They pay their rent on time. They're respectful. And they are all Black people who saw me as a young Black man doing some super dope shit. And they were just like, surprised, proud, like, you're our new landlord? Like, wow. Wow. Like, you're younger than all of us. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty refreshing to be accepted like that by your new tenants, and just like, for them to have that feeling of just such respect for such a young Black entrepreneur.
Yeah. But were you nervous at all, Dre, about, the responsibility that came along with, managing this complex and these 3 other?
Nah, I was confident. I was ready, bro. Like, cause I got tired of being broke, man. And I knew this was my out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I had been like, man, when you grow up broke, like, and you've been broke like your whole life, and you have the opportunity to get out, bro. Like, that's like, ain't no fear there. Like, ain't no fear there. That's excitement. That's joy. That's like bliss. You know what I mean? Like, for real. So I was ecstatic to be able to change my life.
Well, was there at any point through the process, Dre, where you were like, man, am I doing the right thing? Yeah,
absolutely. The first property that I got outbid on, I was sick because I didn't know, like, dude, you're not supposed to be tied to anything emotionally. Like, if it's business. There's going to be other properties, and trust me, if this one don't work out, it's just leading you to the one that's for you. Like, you know what I mean? And I didn't know that initially. So I was just like freaking out. I was emotionally tied to the offers that I was making. When I got told no, like, I was, oh man, that's like, I would like break down, like, and I just had to put on my hard hat and put on my business glasses and see things from a business point of view. Like, dude, none of this is personal. These people are trying to get the most money for their property so they can go and make their lives better, just like how you are. You're just at the beginning phase. They're on the back end of it. You know what I mean? So like, you have to be able to understand these people who are selling their properties just like you want them to understand you as a buyer. Like they're going to take the best offer that's available, and your offer wasn't the best one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Especially when you have investors that are out here paying cash money and can close in 5 to 7 days. And you talking about 30 days and all that shit. They're like, oh man, let me go with this guy right here who's gonna give me my money in a week.
Right.
You know, like, I don't have to deal with any of these mortgage companies who want to come and inspect the place and do all of this stuff. Man, I won't see my money from you for about 30 to 45 days. But this guy is telling me no contingencies, as is, cash right now. I'm gonna take his offer.
Right. Right.
And understand that.
Right. And I think that's wonderful advice, Ray, because for the first time investor, I think people kind of confuse investing with like buying their own family home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, when you're buying that single family home for yourself, you're like walking through and you're like, you know, I could see myself having, you know, family dinner with the family and hosting holiday. But it's like that when you're buying an investment property, that's not what it is, right? It's like, do the numbers work?
Totally different. Yeah.
Right. Do the numbers work? And that's all that matters, you know? And just like you said, it's a numbers game, you know, you got to put out 50 offers to hear back on 5, you know, and you're going to negotiate on 5 and only going to come through on 1. Right. So I love that mindset, Dre. But man, I love your story. So much knowledge that I think you've dropped on the listeners here, brother. And I truly appreciate that. I guess just any parting advice for the listeners, man. Your story, your journey's been really cool. Anything you feel that they need to hear that you haven't shared with them already yet?
Man, just your first time out, don't be scared. Don't be intimidated. Ask for what you want. You know, like, and another key that I learned dealing with NACA is speak to your lender about what your options are. Don't just take what they give you. Like, hey, do I have the option to buy my interest rate down? Can I do this? Is there an option for me to do that? Like, can I, like, you know what I mean? And if they tell you no to the things that you want, there are so many other lenders who are willing to work with you and give you the things that you want and the things that you need. So don't just listen to your agent or listen to whoever your broker or your lawyer or whoever you're talking to, man. Go out and seek information for yourself, because a lot of times these people have their best interests in mind and not yours. And a lot of times when you have somebody trying to lead you in a particular direction, you got to be like, I wonder why they're trying to do that. Because I'm saying I want to do this, and they keep on trying to, you know what I mean, send me over there. So keep your eyes open, keep an open mind, and just don't be scared. Like I say, ask for what you want. If you don't want to pay full price for a property, don't offer full price for a property. If you feel like there's another way around it, or you feel like, hey, you know what, I'll pay full price for this property, but you got to give me a certain percentage back so I can buy the interest rate down, so I can get closing costs, so I can do whatever I need to do on my end to make this situation work for me. Don't be scared to create a situation where it's a win-win for everybody. The seller shouldn't be the only person winning. You know what I mean? And when you understand this and when you go into your deals aggressively and not so passive all the time, you'll find yourself doing and making way better deals because you're actually getting what it is that you want and not just like bowing down to what it is somebody is telling you should do or what you should be looking for. When you educate yourself and you go in and you work with your agent as opposed to your agent just going out and doing all the work, you're going to get way better results.
Man, make it a win-win situation for everybody, Dre. That is like the best advice. I think we'll end it on that note, brother. But if people want to get in touch with you, man, where's the best place for them to go?
Go to my Instagram, Renaissance125. I know the name is long, but that's my brand. It has been my brand for a long time. And Renaissance is just the word that means new birth or reawakening. And I had to reawaken myself and come back alive into this new person and this new beginning of my life. And real estate did that for me. So my IG is Renaissance125. You can find me there. You can find all my content there. And I also am offering right now a introduction to real estate course for anybody that wants to get started in real estate but doesn't know the first thing about it, man. Just like it's 30 modules where we're covering essentially everything you need to know in real estate as a beginner and some, man. So check it out. Hit the Instagram page and check out some of the content that I have there as well. A lot of the information is free and it's very valuable.
Awesome, brother. Well, I'll link to all that in the show notes. So if you guys are wondering where that's at, head over to yourfirstrealestateinvestment.com/59. You guys can grab it there. Dre, thank you so much, brother, for sharing your story, man. Really looking forward to hearing where your empire grows from here, man, because I'm sure it will.
Appreciate you, Tony. Thank you for having me on, man.
All right. Good news, brother.